Greetings! So, it's been a while since I did one of these, and it's been a while since I made a new mod. But I did, and this time around it's actually not a computer mod, so yay for something new. It's basically a building utility type mod, so think a builder's wand or something like that, just a little bit different. So the actual idea came from, well, playing Factorio, funnily enough. So if you played Factorio, you might be familiar with the blueprints. If you're not, it's basically a way of copying a part of the world and then plopping it down somewhere else. So mechanics are obviously a bit different here than they are in Factorio because, well, for one part 3D. So how this works in Architect, which is the name of the mod, is you have a sketch. So the sketch is an item which can be used to define the area you want to save, basically. So you basically define a brush if you want using the sketch. And to do this, you right-click blocks, for example. So let's build a small structure here. And then you right-click blocks. You see these blue boxes indicating that these blocks can be added to the sketch. You just right-click them. So then you see they're marked and they are now in the sketch, essentially. So as soon as you select one block, you get this grid here, which basically tells you how much you can grow the sketch in any one direction, assuming it does not grow in the opposite direction. So basically it's an indicator, a visual indicator of how far you can go inside the current state of the sketch. So I can add a block like back here, but not back here, that's too far. So for example, if I add this one, then you will see the back end here coming in as well as this one, and now you can see it's basically inside these bounds, which are 16 by 16 by 16, so in all directions. That's the maximum size of a sketch. Now you can remove blocks again from the sketch by right-clicking them again, and because it's annoying to add a lot of stuff that way, you can also do a range selection by sneaking. So you now see this grid outline actually, and if you now right-click, you start a range selection, which you can now see is this, and if you now right-click again, every block inside this selection is added to the sketch. And what you can also do is then sneak again to start a range selection, but then sneak while right-clicking again, so you see the box turns red, to remove any block that is inside that bound from the sketch. So once you have a bunch of blocks in your sketch and you're happy with that and that's what you want to copy, what you do is you keep the right mouse button pressed, so you basically use the item over time, similar to how you would consume something like bread or whatever. And now you have a blueprint. So blueprints are basically the place mode of a sketch. Now you can't edit the blueprint anymore, not the contents of it anyway. But now you see, okay, that's where this would be placed if I right-click now. What you can edit on a blueprint is if you sneak right-click, you get a little GUI which you can edit the name of the blueprint and set its color. So let's call this, I don't know, Iron Thinger, and now it's called Iron Thinger. And you see this small ribbon here next to the blueprint. This is basically, whoops, this is basically the color that you can set here. So let's, I don't know, let's make it green. So now it's green. And now I already placed something. So you now see this is basically a kind of grid along which you can move the blueprint placement, outlined by these well, small wire lines. Now if you want to place it like shifted on that grid, so this grid exists because usually you want to place the same thing next to each other and again. So that makes that a lot easier. So it snaps to a grid that is defined by the contents of the blueprint. But now let's say I want to place this on ground level here. Now you see it's one in the floor. So what I do is I sneak, and then I use the mouse wheel to shift. So it's better visible if I do it this way. I shift the placement along that axis that I'm looking at. And, well, the mouse wheel down moves it closer to you and up further away. Up to 1 over, basically, and then it loops around. So I'm always scrolling up here. Anyway, so now I moved it 1 up, and now I can place it as I want. The other thing you can do is this green solid rectangle here indicates the current rotation, basically. You can press R, the R key, and then you rotate it, and the green one indicates which way the blueprint is facing, which is useful for blueprints where you can't actually tell which way it's facing just by the blue indicators. For example, if you have like a solid shape. This key can be rebound, of course. So I can place it in a rotated fashion, and most blocks should properly rotate too, so stairs work and all that stuff. Okay, so placement like this, obviously, easy, simple. This now just works because I'm in creative mode. So if I go out of creative mode, if I try to place it now, it just places one of these blocks and then it stops, because I only had 1 block of iron in my inventory. So that's it, basically. So it pulls the materials it needs to place the blocks in the blueprint from your inventory. So if I take like some more iron blocks here, now I can place them, and as you can see, it gets consumed directly from my inventory. Note that doing so placing the blocks actually does not only consume the materials, it also increases the player's fatigue a bit. So basically it's like, you know, jumping, mining, running, whatever. You can also change the settings to instead use energy from any kind of energy container object in your inventory that implements the Forge energy API. Okay, so that's a very simple shape. Now let's have some fun with something more complex. So let's grab a few more sketches, and we don't need those anymore. And then we can go ahead and do a ranged selection of everything here and get this shape. And what you can do then is, obviously, you can build a few simple building blocks and can just place a huge structure from these few blocks. So what I have here is basically a simple L, inverse L, and a line shape. And what I can do then is I can use those to, so which was which? This was that one. And it needs to go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, yes. So now I can just slap them down next to each other again and again, and it places those. So if you place larger structures like this, right, you probably will run out of materials in your inventory pretty quickly. So to avoid this problem, there is an item in the mod which is basically just exactly intended to avoid that issue. Which one is this facing? Just let me place this, finish this off here as an example. And that is the provider item. So if I go here, I can grab the item provider, and the item provider, let's convert a few of those back because I probably won't need them anymore. The item provider is an item that can be bound to any item in the world. So for example, I can go to this chest and then with a sneak right click bind it to the chest. Now you see this is bound to the upper face of that chest. And now if I'm in survival mode and place a blueprint, what it'll do, you can see I don't have anything in my inventory, but there's a little bit of stuff in this chest. And if I place the blueprint now, this will actually be pulled from this chest. And this doesn't only work with like vanilla chests, it works with any kind of item handler, any talent tree that implements the item handler interface, basically. So now I can go ahead and place this again, and now it's pulled from the storage controller here. Now one more thing is that Where were we? Take this and let's take this. Water, so fluids are also supported. Let me just real quickly. So I can go ahead and take this water source up here, convert this, and now if I place it down in, let's see, in not creative mode, so like this, you can now see I have a bucket of water in my hotbar, as well as the rest of the materials, and that bucket will be drained once I place this, and there comes the water. And as with the item provider, there's also a fluid provider item which can be bound to any tank basically in the world. So I can take this, and now here's a drum with, let's see, 13,000 left in it, and if I bind it to the drum, I can now still, which one was it? It was this one. I can still go ahead and place this blueprint in a world, and it will drain the items still from the storage network. So item providers are prioritized over items in your inventory, and we should now see that the drum only has 12,000 left, exactly. Okay, so this covers the basics of how you use the mod. However, there's one more thing I have to mention, and that is the matter of tile entities. So normal blocks, like, you know, iron blocks, everything from chisel basically, those are simple blocks. These do not have tile entities, so those don't have any larger logic basically associated to them, which they have to save when the world is saved. Now, anything that's a little more complex, for example, even vanilla chests, they do store additional data, and by default, those are not supported, so to say. I mean, they have to be whitelisted, because, for example, the chest otherwise will store its inventory in the blueprint, and when you place the blueprint, you suddenly have a chest with all the items in it, even though you just paid one chest for it. So to avoid such exploits, you have to manually whitelist tile entities. Now you can basically just see that a block is a tile entity. Let's go ahead and use one of these. You can just see this by noticing that I still have a sketch. Wonderful. Instead of green like everything else, they are red. Now if they're red, they are not whitelisted yet. However, it's very easy to do so. So what you can do is you just use the built-in command of the mod, which basically just says whitelist. So I press enter, and now this adds this tile entity to the whitelist, which is stored in your Minecraft config directory. So if we have a look at that now, let's see if this works. It will. Yes, wonderful. So now we see this was written to the whitelist JSON file, and the whitelist contains entries for all the whitelisted blocks. So, and each entry contains an information about the block that is, that it whitelists, and this is the registry name of the block as well as the current properties of that block. So if I look at the block in game here, let's switch back for a moment so you can see this. What you can see here is this is the name basically, so that's the registry name of the block, and these are the current properties. So this is essentially what you see here. Now this is a filter, so this has to match exactly for this to work for that casing. So typically you can strip stuff like this out. So for example, orientation, you don't want to whitelist just a specific orientation of a block. You want to whitelist the block itself. So we can just remove this part here. Now what follows here is the NBT filter, and this controls basically what part of the data written by the tile entity is kept. So in this case, we certainly do not want the inventory to be kept. So we remove this so that it is not saved in the blueprint. Otherwise, when we place the blueprint, we get a copy of the inventory, although we just pay for the block. And then there's a few more things which are, well, that's very much dependent on the block it is. So this is why this has to be a manual process, which is a bit annoying, but, well, you know, there's not really a way around it. So we don't need this, we don't need this. This is configuration information, which I know because I wrote the mod, but usually you can figure this out pretty easily. So for example, if we look at this now here and take the key, so that's this info basically, so that those are now toggled. That's what's stored in that tag, which typically you can tell what's stored where because the names should be pretty self-explanatory. And now if we have this and we save, we can go back into Minecraft and use the reload command to reload the JSON files. And let's just toggle back real quick. So now we see it actually even compacted this entry because it just needs this data. So there's no need for the full complex object blah stuff. So yeah, now that this is in, we can go ahead and we see, okay, now it's green. So we can go ahead and put this in a blueprint. We can convert it in a sketch. We can convert it to a blueprint and place it, if we were in creative mode, place it down, and you see even the configuration was copied. So that's the thing with tile entities. I do plan obviously to add more and more support, built-in support over time as I play with other mods and see which tile entities work and don't. But if you'd like, and I very much would appreciate that, you could go ahead and, while playing, see which tile entities might work as whitelisted ones. So typically this is simple tile entities like one block machines. If you have multi-block stuff, that's kind of tricky and will usually need a very specific converter written for it. But simple machines, one block stuff, this typically works very well with the whitelisting system. There's some more documentation on the exact format of the whitelist, and I have a link down in the description which links to the repository of the mod, and that documents the full JSON file structure of all the 3 different types of JSON files. Now the other one I can just show you real quick is, oh, did you actually see this? I forgot to switch back, sorry. So yeah, this is the copy of the block with the stuff. The other thing I can show you is the blacklist. So if I go ahead and say, actually no, let's never support this block, just blacklist it. And now if we go back to the text editor and look at the blacklist, this is what's in there. If you want to have a more specific entry for the blacklist, which can be sometimes the case, for example, some mods pack together multiple block types into one block ID, so one registry name, and they're differentiated by the properties themselves. So in that case, you can, you can go ahead and, no, let me tell that. Go ahead and use the blacklist command in combination with a property name. So you can tap complete through here and you get shown the current property names. So you can say, okay, I only want to blacklist it if this property value is the one that it has on this current block. So now it says, actually, let's just blacklist this if the property xnag is false. And this allows quite a bit of power to configure this whole thing. All right. So yeah, if you go ahead and whitelist stuff or blacklist stuff because you notice it doesn't work at all with this block, please, by all means, on the repository, either make a pull request with the edited default whitelist file or just make an issue and throw in the whitelist JSON stuff that should be added, and I'll put it in manually. That would be a great help. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for now about the mod. It's, well, as I showed, it's a simple building tool. It has the sketch, which can be made into a blueprint after being configured. The blueprint can be converted back into a blank sketch in the crafting table, and the item and fluid providers can be used to pull resources from any inventory in the world, in addition to what the player has in their inventory. If you have any suggestions or notice any bugs or whatever, please feel free to open an issue on the GitHub, and yeah, that's it from me. So, thanks for listening and happy building. Bye bye.